Longtime Playstation employee leaving, Game of the Year sequel in full production, and the PS2 hits a sales milestone?
What?
But first, Riot Games is offering a bounty to anyone that can find security flaws in their games. The bounty starts at $500, that's about €475, or a little more than £396, for any bug that can prevent users from joining a game you're currently in, to $10,000, that's €9,500, and almost £8,000. There are also bounties for some Vanguard exploits and for vulnerabilities in the Hypixel Studios infrastructure. Just keep in mind that if you do find a bug, you cannot share it publicly if you want to claim a bounty. For the specific rules of the bounties, and to learn how to submit a bug for a bounty, you can search Riot Games 100K bounty on your search engine of choice, and you'll probably get a link to the official announcement, and then in the announcement itself it has a link to the page. If you can't smash any bugs, that's okay. It's not easy to find these things. That's why they're offering a lot of money for them. But you can smash that like button though if you're enjoying the video so far. Another way to make lots of money? Make a beloved indie game. Indie Game of the Year nominee Balatro has made almost $4.5 million. That's almost €4.275 million, or just over 3.55 million pounds, on mobile platforms alone since its port's release in September. That statistic comes from mobile marketing insight company App Magic. The poker-themed roguelike deck builder made $1 million, €949,500, or 792,200 pounds, in its first week on mobile alone. This is all very, very impressive considering Balatro has no microtransactions. So all this money just comes from people buying the game to play it, and it's $10, so it's $10 a pop. That means Balatro has sold 450,000 copies, just about, quick math, at most. But because Balatro is also on Apple Arcade, I don't know how that affects numbers and stuff, so it could be quite a bit different than that number. Speaking of sales, Sony has announced the PS2 has sold over 160 million units since it first launched back in March of 2000. Jim Ryan originally mentioned this number on the PlayStation podcast back in March when he was doing his farewell addresses, but the official PlayStation history page didn't update to show officially 160 million sales until recently, very recently. Now, for those who don't know, the PlayStation 2 is the best-selling console of all time. The Nintendo Switch is in second with 143 million sales. That's for my fellow stats nerds who just have to know. Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine for Sony this week. Shuhei Yoshida, who served as the president of PlayStation Worldwide Studios from 2008 to 2009 and is the current head of indie initiatives, has announced he will be leaving PlayStation on January the 15th, 2025, after originally joining the company in 1993. That is 1 year before the launch of the first PlayStation. Some of you might recognize Yoshida from the famous 2013 How to Share Use PlayStation Games diss that Sony made after Xbox announced the Xbox One would lock a game to a console. Microsoft and Xbox pretty much bailed on that idea pretty quickly after the public backlash hit. In fact, the backlash from that terrible idea is probably what significantly caused the Xbox One to undersell compared to the PS4 in that generation. So, multi-million-dollar mistake there from Microsoft. Anyway, Yoshida said he'd still like to be around the gaming industry, so you might still see him around. This isn't goodbye, it's more of a see you later. Regardless, congratulations to Shuhei Yoshida for an incredible 31-year tenure at PlayStation, and hopefully your next steps are fruitful. From ends to beginnings, CD Projekt Red has announced The Witcher 4, at least that's assumed to be its name, which is a sequel to 2015 Game of the Year The Witcher 3, very confusing naming process I know, is now in full-scale production. The Witcher 4 was originally announced back in 2022, but with the initial stages of development complete, CDPR has begun what joint CEO Michael Nowakowski called, quote, the most intensive phase. I don't know when we might get an official announcement of the game's freaking name or a release date or like a release range, but when it's announced, I'll let you know. So subscribe and ring the bell, that way you're notified whenever that happens. Piggybacking off a story from a few days ago, Nintendo has announced more titles coming to Nintendo Switch Online, and one of them's a classic. Members of the Big N's expansion pack service can now play Toe Jam and Earl, Panic on Funkatron, Mercs, and Vector Man. Focusing on the crown jewel of the three, Vector Man is a Sega Genesis Mega Drive game from 1995. And I mean, look at the sprite work. Look at it. It's so good. This is peak mid-90s visuals. Because, this is 1996 Tomb Raider.
I can't believe your tits are one polygon.
It's kind of wild to see how far gaming's come. Just look at how much Link's changed over the years, for crying out loud. And if you want to know where Echoes of Wisdom fits in the Zelda timeline, watch this video. I'll see y'all next week. Stay safe.